So we're up to Daf Dalit on the days. Good Erev Shabbos Kodesh to all. We were discussing that the Tana of Mishnah could be only one or two Tanoim, either Rabbi or Rabbi Yossi. It could be either Rabbi or Rabbi Yossi, who both agreed that the Mukafais Chayma from Yeshua bin Nun and the open cities, they're going to lane. You're going to lane on the 14th. It's for you. They're going to lane on the 14th because we saw two Tanoim who said they can't lane the same day. According to one Tanakama, the first one, you're going to move the open city to 13th, to the Yom HaKnisa. And according to the second opinion, it was a bigger chiddush, you're going to move the 15th, the walled city, to the 13th. But either one, those two held they didn't say on the same day, as opposed to Rabbi and Rabbi Yossi, who both held if Purim falls out on Friday, you're going to lane on Friday. You're going to lane on the 14th itself. And they dash him from B'chol Shana B'Shana. Says the Gemara, we're up to 2 lines from the bottom, but it gets wide. 2 lines, it's very wide lines. The Savar Rebbe, and Rebbe holds a Yoris Leidachin L'Yam HaKnisa. I think we did this yesterday, but let's see it again. But Tanya, Chal Yos B'Shabbos, if you go ahead and Purim falls out on Shabbos, Kfarim Makdim L'Yam HaKnisa, the boondocks, they go to the Yom HaKnisa. The Yoris Gedolos, Chayrim B'Erev Shabbos, and the big cities, they learn Erev Shabbos. They lane what on? They lane on Sunday. They lane on Sunday. So what do you see? That when you go ahead and you're putting the Yoris Gedolos from Shabbos to Friday, you are moving it off. So it says Gemara, Rabbi once you're moving it off Friday, Shabbos, you don't go to Friday, you go to what? Till Yom HaKnisa. So you see, you do move it off the date. Says Mahachi Hashta. Hasam Zman of Shabbos too. Yeah, this Zman of Shabbos. The 14th came on Shabbos. You have no recourse to go ahead and lane on Shabbos, as we're going to see the Gezerah of Rabbah, Shemi Yavirenu Dalar Amos B'Shus HaRabbim. For Chayil the Nitchu Yitchu. And since it's pushed off, it's pushed off. However, Hacha Zman Erev Shabbos, right? Over here, the Zman is Erev Shabbos. So, and therefore, since the Zman is Erev Shabbos, we're going to keep on Erev Shabbos. So when the Rebbe says, you won't move off your Dalit when it's on your Dalit, I will move off your Dalit when I can't lane. And in this case, I was unable to lane. Keman Oz Lahod Omer Rav Chelbai Omer Rav Huna, Purim Shechal Yos B'Shabbos, Purim that falls out on Shabbos. We're 2, 4, 6, 7 lines from the bottom. There's 7 lines from the bottom. We have a double Rabbi Rosenzweig. Now, Purim Shechal Yos B'Shabbos, Purim that falls out on Shabbos, Hakol Nidachim L'Yom HaKnisa. They all go to the Yom HaKnisa now. All means, again, we're always dealing with 3 variables. You're dealing with the boondocks, you're dealing with the open city, and you're dealing with the walled city. So Fred the Gemara, Hakol Nidachim Salket Naitach. You're going to tell me everyone's going to go from Shabbos to even the walled cities? That's not true. Vayikamu Kafim walled cities. The Avdi Lamacha that does it on Sunday. Your Dalit is Shabbos, Tesvav is Sunday. You're keeping them on their Zman. So how can you say they all go to Thursday? In fact, we know that the walled city goes to Sunday. Ella, what does it mean? Kol nitcha yitcha. Anything that's moved, yitcha Yom HaKnisa. In other words, anything that's moved is yom to the Yom HaKnisa. The walled city is not being moved. It's landing on its day. It's landing on Sunday, Ishu Shampurim. But you're moving what? You're moving off the walled, the regular open city. Since you're moving it off Shabbos, you're not going to move it to Friday. You're going to move it to Thursday. Kol nidachim. Anything that's moved, the boondocks, and in this case, what? The open cities will be moved to Thursday, which of course is the opinion of Rabbi. Kaman Oslo, who does I go according to Kirebi. Now, the Kuli Alma, nonetheless, the bottom line through this whole sugya, Mia, Megillah b'Shabbos like Karinan. You don't lane the Megillah on Shabbos. My time, what's the reason? Omar Rabba says, Rabba, Hakol Chayovim b'Kriyas Megillah. Everyone's Chayiv b'Kriyas Megillah. The Ein Hakol b'Kiyim b'Nikra Megillah, but not everyone's an expert. Because you're going to take it in your hand. Again, you're a yachid. We're going to see that Bidi Eved, you can lane the Megillah alone. B'yechidus, you can lane, if you lane it bisman, you can lane it alone. So the question is, let's say you're worried that on Shabbos, since you every yachid has a chiyuv to lane, you may want to learn how to lane, and therefore you'll go ahead and take it in your hands, and you go bring it somewhere else. Right? Behind the time of the shofar, that's the same reason as shofar, that we don't blow shofar on Shabbos. Behind the time of the lulav, we don't shake a lulav. This guys, ad kedei kach, this is a din deraisa. Purim is a din derei kabbalah. Lulav and shofar both deraisa. This gezerah shemi yavrenu arba amis which is a rabbin is so severe that will go ahead. The chachamim using their powers of being able to mevatel the mitzvah with sheva al taisei, sit and don't do. Right? That tzaddik in Yavamis, we'll see. They did. That's what they did. It's an amazing thing. So that's the reason for shofar. That's the reason for lulav, and that's the reason for Megillah. That's the opinion of Rabbi that we introduced to on the Amid Aleph. Why by the drasha, the chiddush of the drasha was that on Purim, we're not worried about this. It's very geschmack, guys. The drasha is a din in the rabbin. It's a din in the rabbin. By the rabbin, we're never worried by the rabbin being sheva yarvenu abraham especially the rabbin. There's a gewaltige Vilna going, guys. Aliyah kasha. If you're worried about sheva yarvenu dal ramas by Megillah, why aren't you worried about it by Koheles? Why aren't you worried about it by people like the Shitas of the Gra that you lay Koheles and Shabbos with Klaf? Taisus Yantus kasha, guys. Why don't you worry that it's Sefer Torah? Why don't you? How can you go ahead and lay it on Shabbos? Why aren't we worried that maybe you can come to go ahead and bring the Sefer Torah?
We don't carry it. It's in the shul.
Guess what? Let's say you don't have a shul. I understand. You leave your Megillah in shul also. Obviously, it's not a good teretz, right? You leave your Megillah in shul. You're worried about a person laning. The answer is a basic difference. By Keheles, by Shir Hashirim, by Kriyas HaTorah, that's a chiv on the tzibur. It's not a chiv on the individual. It's a chiv on the tzibur to be yaitza. By Megillah, it's a chiv on the individual. Individually, you're worried Shema Yavirenu. A person in his own mind worried after Mekayim the mitzvah, he's going to go ahead and bring it to someone to teach him how to lane. Masha Einkein, you don't worry about laning, right? We have the Balkaira. When it's a tzibur, we're not worried about it. The tzibur is going to take care of it. They'll be matker each other. Chas v'shalom, someone would come to carry a sefer Torah. They'll remember that. That's the shita of the Vilna Gaon. It's a good insight to know to answer a very obvious question. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yosef gives a different reason. Listen to this reason. This is the reason why we don't lane on Shabbos. We don't lane the Megillah on Shabbos. Is Amam Einehem Shel Aniyim Nesuas b'Mikra Megillah. The eyes of the Aniyim, they are looking forward to Mikra Megillah. Now, the Aniyim, they know one day a year. They know comes Purim, you're going to show up. Anyone sticks out their hands, right? You got to answer. They look forward the whole year. If you're going to lay on Megillah on Purim, they won't be able to give the Aniyim. So Memela, we take it off Purim for our sensitivity to Aniyim. To go ahead and be Mekai in the midst of Matanas Lev Yoinim, right? Therefore, we take it off, says Rabbi Yosef. Behind the time of the shofar, behind the time of the Tanya Nami Hachi, Afal Pish Amru Kfarim Makdim El Yom HaKnisa. Even though we say Kfarim go to the Yom HaKnisa, Goivin Boy Bayayim, you would collect the Matanas of Yonim that day. Umechalkim Boy Bayayim. So you see that since they whatever you get the boondocks and go to Thursday, you're still going to collect Matanas of Yonim on Thursday. Why? Because they look forward to the day you lay in the Megillah. That's when it's going to happen. And Afal Pish Amru, Afal Pi. What do you mean? It's very funny lashon. Even though the Kfarim laying on that day, you're going to be mechalik. What do you mean even? It's because you're laying on that day, you're going to be mechalik. Guys, listen, even though they laying on that day, they're going to be mechalik. What does that mean, even though? It's not even though they laying on the day, it's dafka because they're laying on that day, because they're looking forward to that day that you're going to be mechalik. So says, well, you're right. Adrabah, mishum de amrohu. Since we say that Kfarim go to the Yom HaKnisa and Aniyim look forward to that day, Goivim Boy Bayom, Mechalkim Bavayom, Fnei name Aniyim, the Suas b'Mikra Megillah. So we have two reasons now. We have Rabbi's reason, Shemi Yavrenu Abraham B'Shus Rabbim, and we have what? And we have the reason of Rabbi Yosef, who says what? That eyes of Aniyim are looking forward to what? To Mikra Megillah. Very famous Taisus here. You'll see the rest yourself. Weiter. Aval Amin Aleph, Simcha Even though we just said we're going to move the din of Yudalit, we're going to move the Kriyas Megillah off Yudalit, and we're going to move along with it the din of Matanos Levyanim, the din of Simcha, meaning the din of Sudas Purim, and the din of Mishloach Manos Ish L'Reyehu, that will be on the day of Yudalit. So let's say you're in the boondocks, you go ahead, you lay on 11 or 12. Nonetheless, the mitzvah of Mishloach Manos was on Yudalit. Nonetheless, the mitzvah of Mishloach Manos on Yudalit, a chilik between the two. Rav, Megillah Bismana, Koyrin Afila Biyachid. Megillah Bismana, you read Afila Biyachid, right? Afila Biyachid, meaning an individual, as we just pointed out. Shaloi Bismana, let's say it's Shaloi Bismana, you moved it off Shabbos, let's say it fell on Shabbos, and you moved it to Sunday, or not before, you move it to Thursday. Basara, that you need 10. Ravasiyama, Bein Bismana, Bein Shaloi Bismana, Basara, it's always 10. Why? Rav was choish that Bismana to lane with 10, even not 1. And for everyone, Miyam Rav Hachi that Shaloi Bismana you need 10. From Rav Yehuda Bereider Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas Mishmei Rav Purim Shechaliyas b'Shabbos. If Purim falls out on Shabbos, Erev Shabbos Mana, then you lane it on Erev Shabbos. Erev Shabbos Mana. What do you mean Erev Shabbos Mana? But Shabbos Mana. Yudalit is not what. Ela, what do you have to say? Rav Hachi Kamar Shaloi Bismana Kizmana. That if you lane it on Friday, it's like you lane it on Shabbos. Mazmana Afila B'Yachid, just like Bismana, when you lane it in the Bismana on your Dalit, is what is individually. Af Shalei Bismana Afila B'Yachid. So how can you say Rav says Shalei Bismana is 10? L'chora, comparing it to what? To the Yachid Zman, the Zman of an individual, it should be one and not 10. It says Merloi, Linyi Mikra Megillah Basara. Linyi Mikra Megillah, you need 10. Elamai Erev Shabbos Zmana. Lafuki Rabbi. Since the Mekaymas are Nitchu, we're going to push them off. In other words, Rabbi says that if you put it off, you're going to go to Thursday. The Yom Kanisa, Hakashma on the Erev Shabbos Manahu. So guys, really, whether it's Bismana, Shaloi Bismana is going to be 10. When Rav said, when they said that Shaloi Bismana is like Zmana, it meant the following. Rebbe says, Shaloi Bismana, you're going to go ahead and go back to the Yom Kanisa. And he says, no. He says, Erev Shabbos is the Zman, meaning not Thursday like Rebbe, but if it falls out on Shabbos, here's the way you read it. If it falls on Shabbos, the Zman for Kriyas Megillah is on Friday, as opposed to Rebbe who says, once you're pushing it off, Kivin Sheyitcho, Nitcha, it's going to go back to that date. So I don't think I posted this. I thought a very, very interesting. Listen to this halacha. Taf Reish Tzadik. Megillah b'Yadalu b'Tesvav. If you lay Megillah on 14 and 15, Sarach lachzer achas Sarah. You have to get 10. Like we just said, you have to get 10. You have to get 10. And if you can't get 10 together, you can lane individually. So we paskin like again, as like the Gra guys, it's a din achiv on the individual. Yeah? It's a din on the individual. Yes? So therefore, you should get 10. B'di'evet, it's good with 1. Listen to this Ramah. Hagah. There is to mistapek if a woman can go ahead and be included in this 10. Listen up. There's a suffix whether this 10, a woman can be included in the 10. Why is that? So listen to Mishnah Berurah. Listen what he says. Why do you need 10? For Pesumei Nisa. We said yesterday that women are Rabbi ben Levi, women mechuyavim b'mikra Megillah, she'af heim haya b'isa nes. They were part of the nes. Mishum Pesumei Nisa, women are what are. So says the Ramah, I'm mesupik whether that one of those could be a woman. Now, are you mesupik by a woman being mitzaref to a minion? No. Are you mesupik a woman for Kriyas HaTorah? Is no. So guys, there's a very geschmack, innate difference between the 10 of the Megillah and the 10 of what? Of Minyan, and the 10 of Kriyas HaTorah. The 10 of Kriyas HaTorah is a din in Kedusha. You can't say a Davish B'Kedusha less than 10. You're going to say Shmona Esrei, you're going to say Kadosh, Kadosh. You can't say a Davish Kedusha. You can't say a Kaddish, right? Without 10 people. Because any Davish of Kedusha needs 10. Sifrei Torah, Kriyas HaTorah, Davish Kedusha, you need 10. Masha came by Megillah, the 10 is not to go ahead as Davish Kedusha. It's the Mefarsin in the nest. Unless you have 10 people, you're not Mefarsin in the nest. A woman who's Mechuyev and Pirsum Nisa can Zayin is Mistar for this 10. So there's a nice difference between 10 and 10. 10 doesn't always equal 10. 10 doesn't equal always 10. You have to see what the reason behind it. Very, very geschmacka chilik. Says the Gemara. Eze ir gedoyla. What's a large city that go? In other words, which one can't go to 11, 12, 13? Which one is stuck on 14? Kol sheyesh ba asara batlanim. Anything that has asara batlanim. We said yesterday there's 10 people available in shul. 10 people available in shul. If you look at Rashi in the Gemara, look at Gemara, Asar Batlanim, go to the Gemara, first wide line. Shebe Beis HaKnesses, Shehein B'Telim, Nimalachtan, they were bought from the Malacha. V'nizoyim Mishal Tzibor, they were supported by the Tzibor. Kedei Liyos Mutsuim B'Tfil Beis HaKnesses, they should be there for davening. Dom Amar Mesech the Brachas, Kimin Sheba HaKadosh Baruch Hu Beis HaKnesses, Ve'ina Moitzi Shem Asara, Miyad Kayes, he gets angry right away. That's the V'chula. So we always want to have 10 people there. We want 10 people there. So if it has 10 people, that's considered what? A large city for 14. Pachas Mikan, less than 10 Batlanim, regardless of the population. Regardless of the population, less than 10 Batlanim, Harizek Kfar, it's going to have the din of a village, and therefore it'll be a bundak, and you'll be able to go ahead and lay on 11, 12, 13, accordingly, whichever day Purim falls out on. Be'elu Amim, getting back, Be'elu Amim, Makdimim v'lei ma'achrin. By Purim, guys, we say Makdimin, you go ahead, v'lei ma'achrin. I'm sorry, I'm saying the wrong thing. Be'elu, the following, we said, no, I said the right thing. Makdimin, by Purim, you go back, v'lei ma'achrin, you don't go further, you don't delay. Aval zman atzei kahanim. Okay, if I wake anyone up here in the middle of the night, you all tell me Zman Atzei Kahanim are the days that the special, remember they came up, the Tzibur couldn't afford it, they came up from Goylet, they didn't have wood, and these people misnadev money or wood, and that day was Kaveh Yontif, right? That day was Kaveh Yontif, we had those people, Bnei Parosh, Aroch, Bnei Sanoah, different Yom Tovim, and let's say Sanoah was on Yud. So he said, so Tisha B'Av, guys, we had a shaila of Tisha B'Av, you push to Yud, whether they fast or not, because it's a yontif for them. So you see Tisha B'Av, guys, you'll push ahead. If Tisha B'Av falls out on Shabbos, we have a nitcha on Sunday. We don't go ahead and push it back to what? Till Friday, correct? We don't push it back to Thursday. We don't push it back at all. So these following halachis, despite the fact that by Purim we always go back and not forward, these you go forward and not back. So the first one is Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, for whatever reason, you're going to push forward. Chagiga, the Korban Chagiga, meaning the on Yontif, we're going to see, according to Beis Shammai, you can't bring the oilus re'iyah, because you can't eat it. Shammai Chagiga, you could go ahead and eat, but you can't do smicha. We passion on Yontif, you could go ahead and do it. But there, since there's a tashlumin, we'll push it ahead and not behind. Hakel again, everyone, after the Shemitah, Motzei Shemitah, on the first day of Sukkot, everyone comes up to Yerushalayim, everyone, and the king goes ahead. They build a bima, and they would lay in Barabim. That's if it falls out on Shabbos, you can't build a bima on Shabbos. Therefore, you push it off ahead. Ma'achrin, these cases you will delay ahead. V'lei makdim, and you don't go back. And now going back to the din of Purim, even though we say you go back, v'lei ma'achrin, and you don't go ahead, mutarim behesperutainis. So if, let's say you laid on 11, 12, or 13, you'll be permitted to fast and be permitted to be maspid. It doesn't have the severity of a yontif regarding hespedim and tanesim. This is Rabbi Yehuda. Emasai, when do we say that you go back to 11, 12, 13? Emasai, that's tafka places where the Bezdin would meet on Mondays and Thursdays. And then the Bnei Kfar would come in. And then we would reward them. We'd say, since you provide for us all the year, we're going to go ahead and reward you, not make you schlep up. You're here already, right? And you're not bakim and laning. So we'll reward you by allowing you to go ahead and lane earlier. To Tafka when they come up. Then you're not going to come up anyway. Then there's no reason for a reward, right? You're not coming up anyway, and therefore it's not a schlep for you. Then you later on your dalit. Okay, so we have an idea exactly what's going on. This Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, Yud Dalit, and now let's get to the Asara Bat Lanim. Torah Banan. Asara Bat Lanim Sheva Beis HaKnesses. Rashi is the words Beis HaKnesses. Be'elu Amru Magdimin V'loy Ma'achrim. Regarding Purim, we say the halacha of you go ahead and you don't go behind. My timer. What's the reason? What's the reason you don't go ahead? So we know that already. Amar Rav Abba Shmuel Minayin Shein Meinin Amar Rav Abba Amar Shmuel Amakra V'loy Ya'avor. The pasuk says what? V'loy Ya'avor. What was the exact pasuk? I think I wrote it down somewhere. V'loy Ya'avor liyos asim asis es shnei hayom me'ela. V'loy Ya'avor liyos oisim es shnei hayom me'ela. You should not delay in making these 2 days. So we have the halacha of delaying. You're not going to go about and delay. Therefore, we go makdiming. We always go right. We had the kashas guys. Why don't you go ahead? Why did you pick 12 and 13? Smanehem. Why don't you pick 16 and 17? What was the answer? Well, Yavor. You can't do 16 and 17. So Smanehem. Those first 2 days must be 11 and 12. And we said 13 was the Yom HaKila, so we didn't need a limit for that. Just to recharge our memories, rejar our memories. Now, once you're discussing Rav Abba Amar Shmuel, so the Gemara digresses to other places where Rav Abba said it didn't name Shmuel. Amar Amar Shmuel, minayin shein moinim yomim l'shnayim l'shanim. How do you know you're not? What did I skip? No. Minayin shein moinim yomim l'shanim. How do you know you don't count days for years? Shenema l'chotche. So chotche zelachem reish chadashim, right? This is going to be Rishon Lechem L'Chadshi Hashana. This is the first Chodesh, right? So it says L'Chodesh Hashana Chodshim Atamayna L'Shana V'Atamayna Yom L'Shana. So guys, what makes a neder, he's not going to drink wine for a year. So you don't say that at 354 you're going to add 11 days to 365, but because we count months, not years. Once you did 12 months, you did 12 months. Since it says Chodesh Chadashim, you count months and not days, so that will be an afkamina. You wouldn't have to keep the 354 days, 354 days, which is 12 months plus 11 days. Forget the 11 days. You would just keep 354. That's one opinion. Another opinion. Rabbanan de Kesari Mishum Rav Abba Amru Minayin Shein Mechashmin Shoyes L'Chadashim. How do you know you don't consider what hours? Person says this to a wife, this is your get al manas, I don't come back within a year, within 12 months. Now he shows up on the 29th day of the month, so that's it. He doesn't make the 29th. You have 29, you have a few hours, extra hours. We don't consider those extra hours. These 4 things, there's Atze Kahanim, Tisha B'Av, Chagiga, and Hakel, we will delay and we won't go earlier. Now, Gemara will go through each one. Why each one are we going ahead and delaying rather than going earlier? So Tisha B'Av. So let's say Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbos. Why don't you bring it on Friday? Tisha B'Av, we know Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbos, guys. We're famous Nidcha, right? You go to Sunday. Why don't you go to Friday? Says the Gemara, Akdume Peronius loy Mekadme. To go ahead what? And be Magdim Peronius loy Mekadme. That we won't do. You're going to make me fast on the 8th? Come on. You go to the 10th. We're not going to bring it earlier. Go to the 10th. Chagiga, the Karma Chagiga Vahakel, Mishum Dakati Leimatas Man Chiyuvayu. It's Yontif, guys. Tesvav Sukkos. I'll bring my Chagig on your Dalit. If Tesvav falls out on Shabbos, I'll bring it on your Dalit. There's no chiv on your dalit. You're not mechuyev to bring it yet. Hakel falls down on Shabbos. So I'll do hakel on your dalit. You're not mechuyev yet. So obviously you have to delay those. So we have the reason for the delaying of Tisha B'Av. We have the reason for delaying Rad of Hakel. We have the reason for Chagiga. Right. Tana Chagiga. Now this is a very, very interesting kasha. Guys, Turi Evans kasha. Listen to this kasha. When was the Beis Hamikdash destroyed? What day? We just did Tainus. What day? Said Rabbi Yochanan, if I was around, what would I have done? I would have been koiveya, what? Tisha B'Av on what day? 10. Freg the Turi Evan, the Shagas Aryeh. What kind of havamina would you have to go ahead and do it on the 8th? And why do you need the reason that was saying that Tchilas Peronius? Forget the reason Tchilas Peronius. The reason you go to 10, that's the ikka time that it went. The only reason we went to 9 because we considered aschalta the Peronius, the beginning of the Peronius. That's what the Gemara gave. But the ikka destruction was on the 10th. So it makes sense. Why would you have why do you need a svara of what? That Gemara says over here. We don't go earlier. Even without that svara, I would say you go to 10. Right? It's a great kasha. So listen to a Gemara. You know, Gemara's teretz, guys. You learn. The reason I'm bringing this in only is because we just learned this Gemara. The Gemara in Daf Chavtes says, and Tainus Chavtes, I'm Rabbi Yochanan, Tisha B'Av Hoya Omer LaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Ata B'chisa and B'chia Shalchinam, I'll give you something to cry about. Now, the Churim bias first, when the Chsiv, B'chodesh HaShvi, and the 5th month of the Shiva L'chodesh on the 7th day of the month, Hishnas Tisha Asa, the 19th years of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, they came along. Then it says on the 10th day of the month, says the Gemara, Ketzah, what are you going to do? Iyaf Shalom Shiva, Shekvar Omar Asara. Iyaf Shalom Asara, Shekvar Shiva. Elowat, it really began, they breached on 7th, they began burning it, and eventually, so you see that 7 was the beginning. So very geschmack. If you're telling me the whole reason is the 10th, I can go ahead and go to the 7th or 8th as well. Because the 7th or 8th, they were already there. They were in the 8th day, they were defiling and doing terrible things in the Azara. So if not for the reason of Ischalta Pronis Le'Makaminon, we might think you do go ahead and go earlier. Because there was destructive forces earlier. That's the Kasha of the Turi Evan and the Geshmak Teretz of the Turi Evan also wrote the Sefer Shagas Aryeh. Okay, says the Gemara. Now, discussing the Chagiga. Now, let's go outside. We know there's 2 korbanos that every person's mechuyev to bring when he's oil regel. Oil regel 3 times a year. On Pesach, and Shavuos, and Sukkot, they bring the oilus re'iyah, v'lo p'nai reikam, don't see your face in the end, and you bring the Shalmei Chagiga. We had a machloikis between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel and Masech Beitza, whether on Yontif you could bring, on Shabbos you can't bring it. Shabbos you'll have a tashlumin, because since it's possible to have tashlumin, you're not going to bring it on Shabbos. We had a machloikis on Yontif. Beis Shammai said you can't bring the oilus re'iyah on Yontif. You could bring the Shalmei Chagiga on Yontif, but you couldn't do smicha. Again, oilus re'iyah, you can't eat it. There's no purpose of bringing it. Shalmei Chagiga, you could eat. Al Seichel Nefesh, you can go ahead and bring it. You can't do smicha because why? It's also to be mishtamish with an animal on Yontif. And Beis Hillel said, no, it's okay. You can go ahead and bring the on Yontif, you could bring it. Okay, with that in mind, let's see. Tana, we learn a vague, cryptic statement. Tana, Chagiga, v'chol zman Chagiga. Ma'achrin. Now, what does that mean? The Chagiga and the time of the Chagiga. The Chagiga and the time of the Chagiga. What's that cryptic statement? And the time of the Chagiga, Ma'achrim, we delay. Now, Bishlei Chagiga, did Nikolai b'Shabbata, if the carbon if it comes out in Shabbos, Ma'achrim lo lebasa Shabbata. We will bring it till after Shabbos. Again, we have these days of Tashlumin. El Zman Chagiga Maihi. What does it mean? Zman Chagiga. So we're going to have 3 different terutzim to interpret what does it mean Zman Chagiga. So the first one is Amra B'Ishia. The first is Amra B'Ishia. Hachi Gamar. Chagiga b'Shabbos v'oilus re'iyah afilu b'yontif. The Chagiga is on Shabbos, and the oilus re'iyah afilu b'yontif. The Zman Chagiga ma'achrin. So Rashi speaks for Hoshi Mashma. Here's the Lashon of Brisa. Chagiga ma'achrin. The Chagiga you're going to delay. V'oid yesh davar acher, and you have another carbon. She'egia zmanai me'achrov oisa hayoim afhus man chagiga ve'ezeh zuelas re'iyah she chayva. So in other words, here's the way he teaches. Chagiga is delayed, zman chagiga, and there's an other korban that you bring in the zman of the chagiga, which will also delay. What's the other korban that coincides with the zman of the chagiga? It's the oilas re'iyah. So just as you delay what the chagiga, you'll delay the oilas re'iyah. That's the opinion of Rabbi Shia, and who's that opinion of? That's Monei Beis Shammai. So Rabbi Shia hachi kamar chagiga b'Shabbos v'oilas re'iyah afilu b'yontif. The chagiga you'll delay on Shabbos, and the oilas re'iyah even on yontif you'll delay. The zman chagiga ma'achin. So just like we ma'achad the zman of the chagiga, l'inyan chagiga we ma'achad the zman of the oilas re'iyah. And money that's Beis Shammai that you can't bring the oilas re'iyah on yontif because according to Beis Hillel you could. Did not Beis Shammai yoimrim maybe in shlomim b'yontif because they could be eaten. They in soimchem alei and you can't do smicha because you're not being mishtamish with an animal. But you can't bring an oila. There's no purpose if you can bring it on another day. If you're in shlomim v'oilas you could do both. So that's Rabbi Shia's teretz. That zman chagiga means there's an other korban which you'll treat like the zman of the chagiga that's brought the zman of the chagiga, and you just like the chagiga you delay, we're going to delay this out of the korban, the oilas re'iyah, similar to the zman chagiga. Rabbi says no. Chagiga, what does it mean chagiga? Kol zman chagiga, ma'achrin, tfeiloi. You're not going to delay more than the zman of the chagiga. What does that mean? Ditnan, mishloi chag b'yontif rishon shel chag. If you didn't bring your chagiga on the first day of Sukkot, you can go ahead and do the whole Sukkot, and you can even do it on Shmini Atzeres. Once the regel passes, Shmini Atzeres passes, and you didn't bring your Charman Chagiga, you can't make it up. So Rabbi says, Pshat is Chagiga, Zman Chagiga, you have the whole Zman Chagiga to bring your Karban Chagiga. Tashlumin. Rav Ashi Amar, a third pshat, chagiga v'chol zman chagiga, ma'achrin, what does that mean? Vafilu atzeres, that even Shavuos, which is only one day, the chad yuma, ma'achrin, you'll be able to delay and bring for 7 days, you'll be able to bring the korban chagiga. The nan, moedem shem chal atzeres lias b'shabes, the moeda, that I don't know who's moeda, we'll have to see the machlokes there in chagiga. That moida shechal atzeres liyah b'Shabbos if Shavuos falls out on Shabbos, Yom Tefua achar Shabbos, Yom Teshechting is after Shabbos, so you're delaying it. Why? Because even though it's not Shavuos itself, there's a tashlum into Shavuos. So we have three pshatim. Rashi is saying it's referring to another animal that's brought the zman the re'iyah, which is the zman the chagiga, which is the oilas re'iyah. We have Rabbi saying that the chagiga, you have the zman of chagiga or late days, and we have Rav Ashi saying it's referring to a Shavuos, that Shavuos, despite the fact it's only one day, chagiga, the zman chagiga will extend to Shavuos as well. Amr Rav Elazar, Amr Rav Chanina, very interesting Gemara. Rabbi does some interesting things. Rabbi not the Netiya b'Purim. Rabbi planted a Netiya, he planted a tree on Purim. Rabbi planted a tree on Purim. The Rochatz Bekroinoi Shel Tzipurei, and he bathed on the day of the marketplace in Tzipurei, B'Shiva Asar B'Tammuz. So he went to the mikvah, where he washed himself on Shiva Asar B'Tammuz in the marketplace at Tzipurei. Lakar and Ubikesh Lakar Tisha B'Av, and he wanted to be Oika Tisha B'Av, and they weren't Moida. So let's go. Three things. What did he do, guys? He planted a tree on Purim. He washed himself on a tiny tzibur of Shivas B'Tammuz, and he wanted to be Oiker Tisha B'Av. Okay. Now, when you say you want to be Oiker Tisha B'Av, what do you mean? Get rid of Tisha B'Av. So before we begin the Gemara, let's see Taisus. Ubikish lakal Tisha B'Av lehoidloi kasha. Heiki salkedaita. How could you possibly have thought the high Tana the Rebbe? We're going to have a teretz in the Gemara. How could you have thought that Rebbe thought that he wanted to get rid of it totally? We just saw in Paris, guys. We just saw last week. You won't be zeicha to see the nechama of Yerushalayim. The lashon of the Gemara was ein roi b'simchasa. V'oid the ein bezdin yachal levatel divrei bezdin chaveiroi. Elam kein gadol imenu b'chach b'minyan. So once Tisha B'av was instituted, Rabbi doesn't have the power to get rid of it. So how could the Gemara have thought the possibility that it meant to be oika completely? It can't possibly mean that, because again, we see how important Tisha B'av is by anyone who goes ahead and keeps Tisha B'av as misabel will be zoicha. In addition, Rabbi didn't have the power to be oikarit. V'yesh loymar t'leiratzel akro. He don't want to be makarit. Elam mechumra sheyesh bay. He wanted to go ahead and change the chumrah. Yosim mishad tainis v'dairis. In other words, you know that you can't eat from the night before, right? You can't from Tisha B'av, you can't eat from the night before, but every other tainis you could. We know that in Tisha B'av it's asa b'sicha, right? We know that on other Tanaisim it's not. Good. Rechitza, also Tanaisim, it's not. The Inuyim on the other Tanaisim is not. Only on Tisha B'av. So when it said Rabbi wanted to be Oika Tisha B'av, guys, he wanted to be Oika the Chumras of Tisha B'av. Chas v'shalom. Not that he wanted to be Oika Tisha B'av completely. On those things that he wanted to remove the Chumras of Tisha B'av, that the Chumam, even the Chumam went to that. So now we can go ahead and go delve into the Gemara. 3 things. 1, planted a tree. 2, washed on Shivas B'Tammuz, and 3, he wanted to be like a Tisha B'av, meaning the Chumras of Tisha B'av. Let's see the Gemara. So Amal Lefanav, Rav Abba Bar Zavdi said to Rabbi Laza, Rebbe, Loikacha Maisa, it wasn't the Maisa that he wanted to just be Doicha Tisha B'av. El Tisha B'av Shechalias B'Shabbos Have. It was Tisha B'av that was on Shabbos. B'Tchenu when he pushed it off to another day. Lacha Shabbos. Rabbi said, you know what? Once we're getting rid of it, not on Tisha B'av, so get rid of the rest of Tisha B'av. Well, in other words, here's the Havamina of the Gemara, guys. The Havamina of the Gemara according to Tosfos. Rabbi wanted to get rid of the chumras of Tisha B'av, the washing, the anointing, the tashus. He wanted to get rid of all of that. There wasn't a Havamina he wanted to get rid of Tisha B'av. Says now, that's what Rabbi Elazar, in the name of Rabbi Chanina said about Rabbi. Comes along Rav Abba Bar Zavda and says, that's not what Rabbi did. That's not what happened. Here's what happened. Rabbi, it fell on Shabbos, and we pushed it as the Mishnah says, Ma'achrin v'lei makdimin. You're going to go take it on Shabbos, and you can burn it on Sunday. Said Rabbi, once you're not keeping Tisha B'av, so they do away with it. That's the Maisa. Very geschmack. Rabbi Leza said to Rabbi Abba Bar Zavda, it's better to have a chavrusa than one. Look at me, I learned this one thing and I made a mistake. And I make a mistake to think he wanted to get rid of the chumash of Tisha B'av. In fact, I would have known that what I was speaking about on Shabbos, I would have known better. In other words, a person learns and they make mistakes. So you have a chavrusa, there's always chavrusa to help you not to make mistakes. Says Rebbe Hechi not in the Tia Purim. Now getting back to Rebbe's first action, how could Rebbe go ahead and plant a tree on Purim? But Tani Rebbe Yosef Simcha Umishta V'Yantif. Now it says that when they made okay, what does it say? Al Kena Yehudim Aprazim Ayoshim Bari Aprazos Oisim Eshem Abo Asla Chaydesh Echad Simcha Umishta V'Yantif. So it says that in he wanted to go ahead and they wanted to make it Simcha Mishta Yantif. So using those words, what does that mean? Simcha Malamish Asurim Behespid. Mishta Malamish Asa B'Tainis. Mishta Lashon Shtia, right? V'Yantif Malamish Asa B'Asiyas Malacha. It's a Yantif, you can't work. So Fred the Gemara Kasha, right? How could Rebbe have gone ahead and planted on Tisha B'Av, on Purim? It says openly they made it into a Yantif. Simcha Mishta Yantif. Simcha Asa, it's Asa Spedim. Mishta Asa B'Tainis V'Yantif. It's Asa to go ahead and work. So how could he go ahead? And for the Gemara, El Rebbe Bar Abisa Havi. Rebbe was a Bar Abisa. He lived in a 14. He lived in an open city. And when he planted it, B'Chamisinata, he planted it on the 15th. Say Nachinami on the 14th, he went to plant it, but he planted on the 15th. In India, is it really so that Rebbe was a 14 guy? For Rebbe B'Tefer Yahavi, Rabbi lived in Tveria. And Tveria was surrounded by the walls. Tveria, it was a 15. I mentioned the other day that Tveria might be a walled city. And Rebbe lived in Tveria. So this teretz isn't going to work. So Rebbe couldn't plant on the 15. Rebbe bar chamisa have. Rebbe was a 15. Let's go the other direction. Okay, I went from 14 to 15. No, I'll go from 15 to 14. He's a 15 guy, and he planted on the 14th day, and therefore it's not a problem. Says the Gemara, is it so obvious that it was Mukafes Chleima Yeshua Nun? Chizkiah Kori b'Tveria bar Bisa ubechamisa. Chizkiah read in Tveria on the 14th and the 15th. Mesafkale, he had a suffix. Imukefes Chleima, he must be Yeshua Nun, and it's a 15. He or Eloi or not, and it's a 14. Says the Chizkiah Mesafkale Rebbe Pshitale. The Chizkiah had a suffix, but Rebbe was a Vadai. There was a 15, and therefore Rebbe planted on a 14. Even if it's Pasha to Rebbe that it's a 15, even though it's Pasha to Rebbe that it's a 15, how in the world could Rebbe have planted on the 14th? But Ksiv and Megillah's Tainus, it says in Megillah's Tainus, which we mentioned, those are the days that you're not allowed to fast. These are the days of Arba Asa on the 15th. Yom Puria, the days of Purim, Inun they are, that you're not able to be maspid. Vamarava, now, why are you mentioning, since we have a Megillah's Esther, why do we have a Megillah's Tainus? It's mentioning that whatever halach is noyig on the 14th is noyig on the 15th. Guys, none of us say Tachnan on the 15th. No one says Tachnan on the 15th, right? Then she's busy with that. No one's saying Tachnan on the 15th. Why? Because you don't say on the 14th. There's even an Inyan on the 15th of getting a little Ari, right? There's a little Inyan of being a little happy, right? Good. So how could, if the halacha is that you can't plant on the 15th, how can you plant on the 14th? So we're back by an abyss. We have a problem over here. How could Rebbe have planted on the 14th? And you can't tell me he was a 15 guy, 14 guy, because even if he was a 15 guy, he won't be able to plant on the 14th because the Megillah's Tainus says it puts them together. Whatever halacha is on the 14th, it's the 15th. And says Gemara, okay, one teretz. When does it say that what Megillah's Tainus, that the 14th and 15th are the same guys? That's regarding Hesped and Tainus. Regarding Malacha, no, only whatever day you hold, the other day's permitted. If you're a 15 guy, you can do Malacha on the 14th. If you're a 14 guy, you can do Malacha on 15th. So therefore, Rebbe, who, because he lived in Tveria, and he knew Tveria was from Yeshua bin Nun, Rebbe, who lived there on the 15th, Memela, what? Clearly he can plant on the 14th. That's what we're holding right now. Is it really so? For Rav Chaziyalahu Gavra, because Shadi Kisna Puria, Rav saw a person plant flax on Purim, Vilatya, and he cursed it. Like Somcha Kisne, and his flax didn't grow. And for the Gemara, Hassan Bar Yuma Have, right? He was a 14 on a 14 or a 15 on a 15, right? And Rabbi, but Mashen came Rebbe, who was on a different day. So therefore, right now we're holding by that teretz. What's the teretz? Rebbe said, what's the teretz? Rebbe was a 15, he planted on a 14. Rabbi, the Rabbi Amar, afilu tema, you could even say, what does the Bach say? Afilu tema biyume havi hesped. You could even say the Tainus, okay. You could even say the what? It was the day of Hesped and Tainus, okay. Afilu tema biyume, stop, comma. Hesped u Tainus kiblo lahayu, melacha loy kiblo alaya. What is Purim, guys? We said three things. You can't say eulogies, you can't fast, and what? And you can't work. From the words Nishta, Simcha, Yontif. Good? Says the Gemara, they wanted to do that. Hesped Tainus, not to fast, not to be maspid, the people makabel. Melacha kiblu alayu. Melacha, they weren't. They would never makabel that in the first place, ever. So Rebbe could be a 14 guy, he could work on 14. Rebbe could be a 15 guy, he can work on 15. It's not us to work on Purim. It's not. Why? It was because we never was accepted by the people. The Meikar Ksiv, Simcha Mishta V'Yantif, L'B'Soif Ksiv, Lasai Sesam, Yimei Mishta Simcha. V'Yantif like Ksiv. Okay, let's look, guys. Look at this. Look at our screen. What does the pasuk say? Al Keina Yehudim Aprazim, Hayoshim Barich Aprazos, Oisim Esyoim Arba Asal Chodesh Adar. Three things: Simcha, Mishta, and Yantif. Who said this? Mordechai Vesta. That's what they wanted. But look what happened, guys. Pasuk of Beis. Kayomim Asher Nachu Behem. The days that they rested on them. Hayehudim Me'avechem, the Yehudim from the enemies. V'Chodesh Asher Nepach Lehem Miyogoin L'Simcha Ume'evel Liyantif. Last I say some. Yemei Mishta V'Simcha U'Meshalach Manais. It doesn't say Mishta V'Simcha V'Yantif. They were Makabel Mishta that what you can't say Hespedim. They were Mishta you can't fast. They were Makabel Simcha, you can't say a Hesped. They never were Makabel guys Yantif. They were never Makabel those words. So it's very geschmack from the Megillah itself. It's very geschmack with this teretz. So we have two terutzim. One teretz to answer the kasha. How is it possible that Rebbe possibly went ahead and fast and planted Omad on Purim? It was either not his day. It wasn't his day. Either he was a 15 guy and 14 or vice versa. We said he's a 15 guy because Tveria was what, a 15 city. He's good. Another teretz, very geschmack. Mordechai and Esther, when they instituted the din of Yontif of Purim, they wanted three things. They wanted Asa b'Hesped, that's the lashon of Simcha. Asa b'Tainus, the lashon of Simcha, and Asa b'Yontif, that's the Asa to work. But actually, see when they were Kabul, it doesn't say. It says Simcha. It says Mishta. It doesn't say Yantif. Very good.
Like I hear the first teretz, but the second teretz, Rabbi, because of his position as being a leader, wouldn't he have to act differently?
Why? If the halacha is that you're permitted to work, what's the problem?
Only because in the second teretz, if the 15th was his day, then no problem. But since the 14th, if he was
he was working in Tveria. So who is living in Tveria? Who is living in Tveria? People who are 14th or 15th.
People in the 15th.
Yeah, so I'm saying it makes sense then, right? It makes sense.
So that makes sense. Yeah, but I'm saying, but if you the second teretz is the second teretz you gave, since it was Makabel, it wasn't a Yontif.
You're mixing up two dinner. You're mixing up two things, Hesh. There's two separate terutzim. One teretz is that you're not allowed to work on Yontif. Which day can't you work? Whichever day is your day. Since Rebbe is a 15, he planted on 14. Not a problem. He planted on a different day. Second teretz is there's no issa to plant at all. He could plant on the 15th even.
So that was my kasha on that one.
You mixed up two things. Your kasha is not a kasha because there's no issa malacha whatsoever. Okay. There's nothing to worry about. There never was an issa malacha because they never made it a yontif. They only made a mishta b'simcha. They never made it a yontif.
Okay.
Rav my time a lot. So very good. So why did Rav curse that guy? If you're allowed to plant, if you're allowed to work, and he was allowed to plant, like the teretz of Rabbah, like the teretz of Rabbah, berei the Rava, why did Rav curse him? Says Gemara, Devarim mutarim v'acherim nogam en issa have. It was something that's mutar that other people noig had issa. V'asrei the Rav loy noig. In other words, we know sometimes that things are mutar, but people noig not asa. So over here, people were noig not to plant, and he went ahead and did it. So Rav cursed him. People by saying loylam noig, people are noig to what, right? Loylam the noig. It's not a problem, guys. Listen to this. Noig what to work, not to work. They kept yontif, and therefore you couldn't work on 15. You couldn't work on 14. So how in the world did Rebbe go ahead and plant? Says the Gemara, Rebbe netia shel simcha nata. And Rebbe planted an atiyah of simcha. Kidetnan. Avru elu v'leinenu. If the 13 tanesim, remember guys, 3, 3, 7, passed, mimatin bimasu bimata. What do? If it didn't rain yet, you diminish your business dealings. Bibinyan, you diminish what? Construction. Ubinatiyah, you diminish planting. Be'erisin, getting engaged. Nisuin, getting married. V'tana Allah, binyan, what binyan are we speaking about? Binyan shel simcha, netiyah. Netiyah is a tiyah shel simcha. Eze binyan shel simcha zehaboina bayis chasas lebenoi. Your first son gets married, they would build in their court in the chutzah. They build some type of place for them to live. Eze netia is netia ze simcha zu hanaiteya avurnkeri shel malachim. That's the netia wad of the orchards of the king. That is the netia of simcha. You would not go ahead wad and build that you wouldn't be able to go ahead and do. What does Rashi say? Let's see Rashi on this last point. The Tia Shel Simcha, the Kivin the Purim Yom Simchahu Mutal and Toy and the Tia Shel Simcha. So we have guys 3 different terutzim now. Let's go. What's the kasha? Rebbe did 3 things, right? Rebbe planted on Purim. Rebbe wanted to get rid of the Chumash of Tisha B'Av. And Rebbe what? He washed himself on the Shavas B'Tammuz. Good. So now we didn't deal with Rebbe washing himself Shavas B'Tammuz. That we didn't deal with. But with the other 2 we did. So what's the din of how could he possibly plant? We gave 2 terutzim, now a third. First teretz. Rebbe was a 15 guy. The Issa Malacha was on the 15th. He planted on the 14th. Second teretz. They never were noyig to go ahead and not work. They were never makabel. They were makabel mishta v'simcha. They were makabel not to fast. They were makabel not to be masbid. Yontif, not to work. They never were makabel. Third teretz. They taka were makabel, and they didn't work. But the only issa to work is a work that's of simcha. Masha'en kain where Purim is a din of simcha. So of course, an atiyah of simcha won't be a problem. We spoke about an atiyah of simcha. Maybe for a king, they would plant these trees that for its to go underneath it. That should be a place that it should be for shade. Okay, now we're going to digress. We just said that Tveria, guys, was a what? Tveria was a walled city. Question: Is it or isn't it? If you're in Tveria, do you lay on 15 or 14? Or it's not lachal amaisa. Do you lay on that? Says the Gemara. Gufa Chizkia Kari b'Tveria bar Bisa. Chizkia read in Tveria on 14, u'bechamiser on 15. He read on 14 and 15. Why? Mesafkile, he was mesupik. E mukefes chayme mimas Yeshua binun, and it's a 15. Eli, or maybe it wasn't, and it's a 14. Umi mesafkile milsa the Tveria. Ivak siv. For Ore Mivtsar, now this is speaking about in Sefer Yeshua, the Chelik of Naphtali. For Ore Mivtsar, the cities, the fortified cities, what were they? Hatzdim, Ser, the Hamas, Rakas, the Kinares. The Kaimalon, Rakas is Tveria. So you see that Rakas is a walled city, B'nei Yeshua, because B'nei Naphtali, this is speaking about what they were allotted, what they conquered. So you see that Tveria was a walled city. So what's Chizkiya's suffix? That says, Mishum dechad gisa shur de yamahavi. One of the walls of Tveria is the sea. One of the walls of Tveria is the Galilee, is the Yam Kinneret. Meaning, our assumption is a walled city has 4 walls around it. This doesn't. If it doesn't have 4 walls around it, what's your suffix? Clearly, it's a 14. Says right. Faday lav chaymohi. Faday, it's not a chayma. The Tanya asher loy chayma. It says by bati ari chayma. Mashma, you have to have a chayma. But loy shor igur. Shor igur. Let's say the rooftops create the wall. In other words, we consider like this. Here's a wall, and here's the houses. So you have a wall that's separately. But let's say all of the houses are one after the other, and they're creating the wall. That would not be a walled city. If the house is going up on the wall, that would not be what? A walled city. Then the pasuk says, "Ubati hachatzerim asher ein lehem chayma saviv al sdeya aretz saviv yechashev." Now saviv, what does saviv mean? Prat l'tferia. That tferia what is not a bati ari chayma sheyama chaymasa. So very the Gemara kasha. You have a suffix. What's your suffix? Is Tveria considered a 15 or a 14? The suffix is predicated upon that one of the walls is the sea. Fred the Gemara, what's your suffix? By Bati Arichayma, we see Saviv. It has to have walls all the way around, and not the sea. It needs a wall. So just like Bati Arichayma, you need a wall and not the sea. So too by Tferia Le'inyan Kriyas Megillah, it should be not Bati Arichayma. It should be a 14 and not a 15. Says the Gemara, Linya Bati Arichayma Le Mesafkale. No, Linya Bati Chayra would not. If you sell a city and a house in Tveria, you have plenty of time to redeem it. Why? It's not considered that Bati Arichayma that you have the clock starts ticking for the year. Kika Mesafkale Le'inyan Mikra Megillah. Mai Prozim Umay Mukafim. Tiksi Vigabe Mikra Megillah. Now, when it says by Megillah open cities, guys, and closed cities, what does it mean? Says the Gemara, Mishum Dahani Migloi, Vahani Loi Migloi, Vahainami Miglaya. Open cities mean you can see them. And therefore, since you could see Tveria from the sea, it's not a walled city. Mishum Dahani Migane. It's not the fact they can be seen, it's the fact they afford protection. Vahani Loi Migane, right? Vahanami Migane. The open cities, there's no protection. The walled cities are walled, there's protection. And therefore, the Tferia would fit the bill because it protects. In other words, guys, Bati Arichayma has to have a physical wall. We have a pasuk. By Megillah, which was what? Based upon the pasuk of the wall, was based upon the pasuk, the pasuk that we read, right? We just read this pasuk, right? Alkena Yehud ma prozim. Now, when it says open cities, what does open mean? Does it mean open to view, or does it mean open to ability to attack? Because there's no protection. So are we looking at the way you look at it, or are we looking at is the protection? If you go after the way you look at it, then you're right. Then Tveria would not be a walled city because you can see into it. But if prosais means that, opposed to prosais, the closed city is that it's protected, that would be protected as well, and then Tveria would be a 15. So that's the Gemara Shaila. Okay, and therefore you're in Mesupik. Ravasi Kori Megillah Behutzel. Babiso v'chamisa. Ravasi, he would lay in the Megillah in the town of Hutzel on the 14th and 15th, because Masafkele imukas chayim yos Yeshua binun he eloi, whether it was or not. It could be army. Others say Amar Ravasi, Hi Hutzel the base binyamin mekefes chayim yos Yeshua binuni. Now Yochanan kiavinan talia amina milsa the she. Okay, that we're going to go weiter. Okay, because then we're going to go to names. But again, in addition to Tferia, the din of Hutzel, you have the same suffix, whether it's a Bati Arichayma or not. Wish everyone a good Shabbos. Bez Hashem, Mitzvah.